On this episode of Mighty Car Mods, Too Sexy gets a turbo. Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. Too Sexy's got a big block, which is super exciting. We got the big block in. Alan ruined his hand. Is your hand fixed yet, Al?
Semi.
So you've got some movement, enough movement to turbo the big block Too Sexy?
I reckon.
Do you remember how ugly this car was? What do you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's the right answer.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really ugly. Anyway, and I remember talking about all the setup that the old car had, which was pretty awesome. But it's even cooler now, and it's got a big block 2.4 litre, apparently with really skinny rods. That's the rumor I've heard. When I started telling like Tuning Fork and Dave and that about this engine, they said, "Oh, it's going to snap a rod." That's the first thing they said.
We'll check the rod size when one comes out. It's the only way to confirm.
Anyway, so everyone's going to put shit on my Lancer. That's just a fact of owning a Lancer, but then you chop them and then they love your car. That's the way this works. So I'm going to chop everyone. But today we're going to start our turbo manifold over the next few days. It's probably going to take a few to get this all set up, which is exciting. So let's just do it. This is measuring the temperature of the roof. It's 48.4 degrees. I believe that's like well over 100 in Fahrenheit. We're like 30 something. We're 38.6, which is probably not good. What else have we got? The hoist is 36, and the room generally is sitting at about 35.5 degrees, and the humidity's up there too. So if you're wondering why it looks like we've been in the shower, it's because we're showering from the inside.
Shouldn't he be dead at 38?
I don't know, man. He's alright.
One of the biggest components of any modern engine swap is wiring. The process for a traditional big block might be some fuel, a wire or two, and a big carb. Mitsubishi are making us work a little bit harder for our front-wheel drive big block, requiring 50 plus circuits to run everything on this 4G69. It might be a simple engine, but it still needs heaps of wiring.
No pressure. Why are you watching me?
I want to make sure you do it right.
I will do it right.
That's my job.
I'll do it right. I can't handle this pressure. Too much pressure.
Under Alan's very watchful eye, it's my job to crimp our old and new looms together and connect it up to our Haltech ECU connectors.
No, it's fine. It's going to be here tomorrow. Yeah, thanks very much. Bye. Parts that were supposed to be here Monday, not going to be here till Thursday. And guess when I go home? Thursday.
Al's shed is about 1,000 kilometres or 621.371 miles from home, so getting up here requires a long drive or a flight. Al's put aside some other projects to help me out, but can only take so much sexiness before customers start asking when their cars will be finished. This means we have to hit boost on this build and get things done quick. Wiring can be a slow process, but we're going to get it all done and get the car running before we start on turbos, which is a bit like saving your hot chips until the end of your meal. We're confident that all our wiring is good, so now our Wrecker engine can get a new oil filter and some sweet Castrol Edge 5W40 engine oil. We're putting it in now so we can test the engine as soon as our starter circuit is working.
Scare the shit out of me.
That's the start wire.
Oh, right. Thanks for letting me know.
All the wiring needs to be checked and double checked before it can be sealed up with electrical tape. And that means laying our new loom over the engine, plugging everything in and making sure it all works.
We've got our loom all wired up. Now it's time to wrap it again in tape and a little bit of conduit. So we had to lay it over the engine to make sure all the measurements were right and all the spacing is right so it can just plug in. And the idea is if you do need to take the loom or the engine out or whatever, you can just unplug a couple of plugs, some of which we had to put on, and pull the loom out, and it comes straight out through that hole. We're using the CH Lancer grommet. It's the same cutout, which is cool. It's got a bolt hole there that we'll need to make in the firewall for that bolt. Otherwise it's going to plug straight in. So now we just double check everything's right, make sure we've got nothing sort of hanging out, and then start wrapping. What's this off?
It's just a wiring cover. It's what Japanese cars use,
Yep.
rather than conduits. They usually use it on the inside of the car.
And it,
So it's because conduit can be abrasive and damage
I
things on
see.
the inside of the vehicle, so they use this sort of soft cover, and it also allows a lot of movement.
yeah, true, because we still need to be able to move to even get it in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't want to. The wire, if the loom's too tight, it'll pick out a wire that's the shortest, and it'll pick on that one.
And break it.
potentially damage it. Yeah.
Right.
So that's why it's wrapped like that,
Yep.
and then you cover it, so it still moves around inside.
Awesome. Which is what you see on the factory ones too.
Yeah.
If it's good enough for the manufacturers, it's good enough for us. Our freshly taped loom can now be run through the firewall and into the car. Next, we can connect up our electronic accelerator pedal and finally plug in our Haltech Elite 1500 that we recycled from Miss Daisy's parts bin.
We're making really good progress. We have our wiring loom in place. Our Haltech Elite 1500 is plugged in. We've run a vacuum line for it. There's really no reason why it shouldn't start, assuming everything's gone well. The problem is that we're almost out of time. A bunch of our parts didn't show up, and of course we have our little dirt bike mishap that set us back about a day or day and a half. We still don't have a radiator set up ready, so we can't run it for very long, but we can make sure it cranks and it actually does fire and everything's working.
With a few last-minute checks to make sure the ECU is wired in correctly, we can set our static fuel pressure on the GFB regulator and then go into our ECU software and select our triggering system. There are quite a few people getting around with custom turbocharged Lancers all over the world with this engine, so this has been programmed into the Elite software from the beginning. Next, we can set up our electronic throttle, which means our Mitsubishi pedal and our Subaru throttle body can talk to each other.
We have our ECU all plugged in, wired in. We've got a very basic map in there that should at least let the car crank and start. And if it does, we at least know that our wiring is good. So let's do it, man. Says trigger synchronization state stopped. So we check that with our cam and crank using the right inputs. So if you don't start, it's not getting any trigger synchronization, which means it's not getting any pulses from the cam and crank angle sensors. So you have to check that the crank angle sensor and cam angle sensor is wired correctly, that it's talking to Haltech properly, and that it's set up properly in the Haltech. So there's a few different stages where that could go wrong. The rest of things is working. Pretty sure we got spark. Air temp sensor's working, the wideband seems to be happy. So we're close, we're just not close at all. It says trigger synchronization state running and then trigger level half. Could that timing be out by any chance?
We hear a small pop out the intake, which could indicate that our ignition timing is out of sync, and that means no starting.
All right, hang on, restarting. Yep, give it a crack, bro.
Between each attempt to start the car, we slowly move the ignition timing trigger offset value up and down in the Haltech software until the engine wants to run. We can then fine-tune this figure with a timing light.
Yep, go for it. It's alive!
Too Sexy with its new massive big block is alive. It means our wiring, our fuel system and our ECU work perfectly, and that means tomorrow morning we can finally get stuck into our mad chips and turbo this thing.
Honda Power. This is a radiator for a Honda Civic. What kind of Civic, I don't know, because the most experience I've had with the Civic is one with a fake roll cage and a Civic motor and a Mini, which is a pretty cool place for it to be. So they're kind of small, which is good, and it's a half radiator. So the idea is this clears up a whole lot of space at the front of the car to put turbos, because that just sits, and it's kind of cute, isn't it?
Al's turbo plans for the front of Too Sexy means we're going to need maximum real estate for the manifold. This half radiator was never meant to fit this car, so we'll have to make custom mounts to get it to fit.
Alan, it's time to talk turbo. which is, I know, one of your favourite bits, because I think everything we did up to this point was so we could turbo the car, right?
Pretty much.
Including more displacement, which helps turbos, right? More spool. So this is the turbo. You may recognise it from Miss Daisy, which is a GTX
67.
67. So 30 would mean the frame size on the back, is that right?
Turbine size.
Turbine size.
67mm compressor.
Cool. Awesome. It's got a Subaru flange on it, which is not a problem because they're common and easy, and because we're making our own manifold, we can do what we want, right?
That's what's on it, so that's what we're using.
So what do we actually have to do to this to attach it to the car?
Well, we got to, like, basically strip it, dismantle it a bit so we can clock it, so we can turn the core the way that suits us.
So you leave it loose,
So
position it, and then turn
it
it?
normally sat like that, flat, but
Yep.
it's probably going to be like this in this case.
Okay.
Just because that's how it's going to fit. So then we obviously have to rotate the core, rotate the compressor cover to wherever it needs to go. So basically we'll just dismantle it so that can happen.
And we can recycle this wastegate?
Yeah, it should
Fittings, changing them?
We'll use some new fittings because they're not going to be much use,
Oh, they point the wrong direction or whatever,
Yeah.
and we can just do speed flow type stuff.
I reckon.
Awesome. So what's the first step?
Inox.
This is called turbo teamwork. We have 3 hands.
3 hands are better than 2.
3 hands between us. That's all got to come off too, hey?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Alan doesn't say a lot sometimes, and you ask questions to Alan, and if he thinks you should know the answer, you don't get the answer. You just get a look. You get a look. Everyone knows the look I'm talking
Listen
about.
to your inner self.
Listen to your inner self. Think about it, use your brain, etc. Which is both the best bit about learning from someone who's very experienced and the most annoying part.
Get back to work.
That's so cool. And as long as you keep your oil facing up, you're kind of all right, aren't you?
Yep.
So we should whack it on the car and then figure out the orientation,
Sounds good.
which means this rubbish can come off. Come on, man.
It's an Evo, dude.
Dude, you know it, like, that's where it wants to be, isn't it?
No.
Like, look at all the space for it.
It's an Evo.
Look at all this, look at that, man. Boom. Just like that.
It's not an MX-5.
How good is that? Perfection.
It's not an MX-5, it's an Evo.
We need to discuss the thought process behind this.
This is where the Evo Turbo lives.
What do you mean?
They go out the front like that.
Why do they go out the front?
Because
Who says they go out the front?
the internet.
This isn't the internet's car.
Yes, it is.
This is too sexy. This has been dropping panties since like the 90s, man, and it doesn't need the turbo. It doesn't need the
Look.
turbo. The bonnet's not going to shut.
Yes, it is.
It's not going to shut because you're going to cut a hole in the bonnet.
Yeah.
No, that's not what's going to happen, dude. Why does it have to point forward for?
Because it's an Evo.
Can I fit an air filter on it there?
Yep.
Well then, as long as I can put a filter on it and shut the bonnet, I can deal with it.
We'll negotiate.
Is this the negotiation right now where you basically do what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. Come on.
Tofu, sorry, hello.
Hey mate,
Yes.
tofu.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Man, I'm just up with.
Not over there. Sorry, someone's eating my grapes, man. I just bought some grapes and someone's eating. No, don't eat my grapes, man. Sorry. Hello.
Dude, I need some backup. Me and Al are having a bit of a thing. It's not a bad thing. Like he's cool and I'm cool, even though he's telling me what to do, which is a bit annoying. But I guess that's the whole point.
He is the Yoda.
Well,
it is the master and apprentice.
the problem I'm having is that he wants to stick the turbo on Too Sexy, like out the bonnet and out the front bumper bar, like literally hanging out in the wind.
Okay.
And I want to have it like in the engine bay. And it's not that we can't decide. He's just telling me that I have to do it that way, and I don't know what to do.
Well, normally the rules in a case like this, Martin, is for our own growth. You would go, cool, well, we haven't done it before, so do it that way. But we've had turbos both under the bonnet and out of the bonnet. Martin, let me ask you this quick question.
Yeah.
Let's pretend, close your eyes. Are they closed?
Yep.
Okay, now open them up. You've just woken up and you've walked in and now the turbo's hanging out of the bonnet. How do you feel out of 10?
I feel that it looks awesome, but I'm also scared I'm going to get arrested.
So number, what does it feel out of 10?
6.
6. All right, close your eyes.
Yep.
Wake up, and you're snuggling a cat.
Yep.
And you're patting the cat, and then you go out to the garage, and now it's not hanging out of the bonnet.
Yep.
How do you feel out of 10?
Like I can go to Macca's.
And how does that make you feel? That's gross.
6.5.
Done. There it is. Goodbye. I'm going to stop eating my grapes.
I still feel a bit torn. Under the bonnet. Under the bonnet. Turbo Yoda.
What?
These ones are under the bonnet.
It's not an Evo. You're not listening.
I can't argue with that. All right, let's just do it. Let's just do it and see what happens.
Okay.
Let the situation evolve. Let the turbocharger evolve into, oh, that's a cool filter.
It's just to stop the rocks.
Are we doing this again? All right, good. Really, facing forwards. And you think we'll have room to do it that way? You can't clock it that hard, can you? Really? That's so that when you take the... But how can you
No, I
can't...
think we need to cut in here a bit.
Yeah,
For sure.
to bring it lower.
Yeah. To get the filter out further, because it's...
To get the filter out further. I don't want it out further.
That's where the fresh air is. Fresh. High density. Because that's what makes the engine go good. And the rods stay in.
The rods are not going to stay in, you know
Yeah,
it.
they will.
No,
High
they're not.
density air will keep the rods in the block.
Rods are going on holidays, man. It's a vacation for old Rodney.
Less ping.
Rodney.
Uncle Rodney will stay.
Uncle Rodney's going on holidays. Out the window that he made himself.
I've got another idea.
What's that? Hit me.
Get rid of that intercooler.
And use what?
Water to air.
The one off Miss Daisy?
Yeah.
You reckon?
Because then we can put it like right out here.
Oh, like Dale's drag car.
Yeah. Sick. I've got like a 180 mil hole saw.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
I'm legit torn because I can't, so if we dyno it, I can't even drive it like out the driveway of the dyno. Like it's a trailer queen forever.
Why?
Because it's so illegal.
Dale drives his car on the street.
No, he
It's got
doesn't.
Two big holes
He does
in it.
not drive on the
Does.
street. Whatever. 6-second drag car on the street.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just do something. Do you honestly think water to air is a good idea in this thing?
Yeah, because then we can put the turbo there.
That's the only reason you want water to air, though, isn't it?
Oh, well, that works all right.
Does it?
You could just put it here. Put the cooler across here. Be sweet.
All right. Let's just start doing stuff, and we'll let it
The
evolve.
best part is that I'm the boss. So you
Oh, okay.
just have to do what I say anyway.
All right.
Otherwise, I'll dock your pay.
My car, not my rules. His rules.
And we can move it over that way a bit further as well.
Yep. So much room for activities. This got to go, doesn't it?
Yep.
12s.
Too small anyway, dude.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's not.
But the water to air will work. I suppose it did on Miss Daisy, didn't it? 2.5 litre. That's more of a temperature. I mean, these are all temperature regulators, but some would say that water to air is not as good on the track, though, right? Because that's what the whole internet's going to start telling us.
Yeah.
Water to air is more suited for stop-start driving. But this is more about packaging, isn't it?
Yep.
And we're not making 1,000 horsepower.
No.
And you think that water to air is sufficient?
Yep.
I made 269 kilowatts on Miss Daisy. This motor's not going to make 269 stock. Maybe built if you're lucky.
It will, with the rods are in there.
All right, this can come off. Has it been raining here a bit, has
A
it?
little bit.
Dump pipe down, manifold in the top. Not sideways, come on, man. Can we do it front to back? I like it. That looks cool.
No, I'm going sideways because that's where the exhaust goes.
Oh, right, okay. It doesn't matter that this is the wrong way, or do we flip that round?
That can go anywhere because
Oh, it goes up this
water
way.
there. Yeah.
Wouldn't some say that we're making our charge pipe to our water air intercooler a bit longer than it needs to be? Cool. Do we need to get the bumper and make sure it's going to work? Or we just make the bumper fit it?
No, put the bumper up. It'll fit.
That looks awesome. Do you reckon we'll need to cut it out? Or
No, not really.
I reckon that's cool because it catches heaps of cold air. It'll be fine for oil drain and everything else?
Yep, it's above, it's fine.
Awesome. I love it, man.
Sick.
I think we've solved it. I think it's like stealthy enough, but still going to be fun for manifolds and everything else.
With our turbo setup worked out, now the fun can really begin. We've got a merge collector which will get the exhaust gas from each exhaust port into our turbo and turn it into boost pressure. We're going to attach the turbo in position temporarily so we can get an idea of where it will sit when it's finished. It is possible to buy a fabricated turbo manifold off the shelf, but we like to do things just a little bit differently.
This is what's known as a compromise. It looks mad. And there's heaps of room for manifold up here, and dump pipe can just go straight out underneath, and then the charge will come back around, up and into the top via the intercooler. Where did that intercooler come from?
I don't know. I was going to use it on the mirror.
Oh. Wait, you got a mirror? What? What's the step for actually manifolding now?
So we got a 4-in-1 collector because we're not doing the old log manifold this time because you can't do that on Evos because they're different. So we've got a 4-in-1 collector.
Wait, you could do it. You could, but you wouldn't, or you could,
You just have to read it any way you like.
Continue, yeah.
So we're going to do like big
Bananas.
4-in-1 bananas and stuff that
That's cool.
overheats everything and does exactly the same thing as a log manifold.
Gets really hot.
But anyway, you have to do that.
We're going to use a combination of new and recycled parts to make our mad banana manifold. Al keeps lots of bits and pieces around his shed that come in handy in these exact situations.
Awesome. Is that a tail shaft?
Yeah.
What?
I
thought it was an exhaust.
Using it for the flared bit
Is that paper in there? Why do they put paper in there?
to stop them ringing.
Really?
That's off an 86.
Because they go, "Ooh." Otherwise, do they?
Yeah, it just dulls the tinging noises that you get inside it.
Well, so that's our now part of our dump pipe.
Yeah, so we're just going to trim that down
Yep.
until it fits in there properly, and then trim that, and that's like a pretty close match to the merge collector that we've got.
Awesome. And this is a stainless steel flange, is it? Like it's a recycled one,
Yeah, it's
obviously.
off a
IS, that's like a JD Japanese brand, isn't it?
I don't know
No?
what it is. This
Dunno.
is like aftermarket header for a
Oh, okay.
WRX.
Cool. But that looks like pretty reasonable quality.
Yep, looks good.
Too sexy!
Bananas. Banana up, banana down.
Yep.
Banana swinging around. That one at the front, or you do it like that?
I don't know.
Oh, have you never done this before?
No.
You've never bananaed before?
I have banana, just not on this particular Lancer on this engine.
I wasn't saying you weren't good at what you do. We're getting started on a manifold, which is going to take all day probably to get this all sort of piped up and then start to pipe up our intercooling system as well. But the first step is to put our collectors, which we've now welded onto the flange plate, and then that lives on top of the turbo, correct?
Yep.
Like that.
About there somewhere.
Awesome. And now we have to make our bananas. So how do we do that?
We do number 4 and number 1 and number 4 to
Does that help?
there.
Yep.
That one's not long enough. You do extend that one. And then 3 and 2. Like that. Hectic. What if we need these ones?
I don't even like bananas unless they're on my turbo. That's awesome. So now we just got to make that out of metal.
Yep. That'd be better.
This kind of design it as you go car modification can be some of the most rewarding because you can be as creative as your materials and tools will allow. Our basic mission is to get exhaust gas from those 4 ports down into our merge collector and into the turbo as smoothly as possible, while still being able to weld it all together at the end. It's lots of trial and even more error as you cut pieces to make it fit.
So we have 2 of our bananas tacked in place, ready to go. Do we do the rest on the car, or is it now time to take it all off?
And we can just take it off now because you basically what you're trying to do is just locate your flange. So
Yep.
if we now weld those, settle down, bro. If we now weld those on, then that's where it is,
Yep.
regardless.
Yeah.
Then we can just put our second 2 in.
So I can take this whole thing off. Turbo stays where it is. We just take the manifold away.
Either way.
Either way.
We'll take the turbo off.
Welcome to the Not So Sunshine Coast, Martin.
I love the rain. How good is it? It doesn't rain where I live, ever. Amazing.
It doesn't get much better than being in a mad shed, working on your car, all while learning from a total wizard.
What?
Shouldn't you be sweeping the floor or something?
Yeah, probably.
There is still heaps left to do in the day or 2 of time we have left to work on this car, but we are getting so close to having this car turbocharged, ready for a tune and ready to hit the road.